So I'm going to do another weekly catch-up. I really enjoyed doing this the last time, and it's been a couple of weeks because obviously my last video I did a September wrap-up. So a little bit to update you on, I have read a little bit less in the last few weeks than I anticipated, but I have been reading. And if you didn't watch my September wrap-up, the first book that I have to talk about is this one, because I was, I think, reading it, or I just started it, or I was in the process of reading it in my last video. I don't recall. But I did finish this right at the end of September. I think I'm going to unhaul this. I think it's going to go into like a future unhaul pile of mine, because I ended up giving it like a 2-star. I've seen a lot of people big this up and talk about this book recently, that it's like a new fantasy that you should read. But I personally don't think it hits. I don't. I think it actually misses. And there is a second book, and I just don't think I'm going to read the second book. I don't really want to follow the same story. I liked the concept of it a lot. It's about this girl who basically is like Groundhog Days. If you're not familiar, she wakes up the same. Every time she dies, she wakes up in the same place, like back in the future. She has to relive certain things, but it's like based in this fantasy world. She's not from this world. She's from our world, Earth, but she's, for whatever reason, we don't know why, she has been waking up in this world, this fantasy world, for, I don't know, 200 plus lifetimes. That basically she has died over 200 times in this world. And she, as soon as she comes back, she like wakes up in this pool and she's completely naked, and it is comical. Like, this is a satirical comedy, and it's kind of, you know, I thought it'd be a little bit cozier. I thought it'd be a little bit more fun. But it's not to be taken seriously, so that's absolutely fine. But she is this quest to, you know, be the hero of the story, and she keeps failing. So she's had enough. And basically this story is the concept of her just saying, fine, I'm going to be the villain and become the Dark Lord. And so this is her quest to do so. I just felt like I would have liked her to have a little bit more attempts. I feel like at the beginning of the book, she keeps dying, coming back, keeps dying, coming back. And then, I mean, not much time happens after that where like a big chunk of the book, you know, she's like pushing forward. And I can get why it could have been repetitive. She kept failing, but I kind of wanted her to keep failing, and maybe the story change a little bit. Maybe, you know, things happen differently, and that to me was something that I would have been more interested in, where you would have seen these different parallel, I guess, situations. And it didn't really happen. At the end of the day, I was kind of bored of this book. It kind of bored me. I was in the middle of it, and I was thinking, damn, should I DNF this book? But I decided not to. I pushed forth, and I don't regret reading the whole thing, but it also didn't enrich my life. And I did have other issues with the book, which I don't need to go into. But yeah, I read this one. And then I also started reading this, and I actually just finished this book last night. So this is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. Really high hopes for this book. I thought it was going to be a 5-star when I started reading it. It has ended up not being a 5-star. I don't really know where to place this. I'm giving it a 4-star. I don't think it's a 4.5. I don't think it's 3.5. I think 4 is decent enough for me to be like, I'm kind of comfortable with that number, but at the same time, this did make me cry at the end. Like, I was like bawling with tears in the last like couple of pages in a good, like, cathartic way, I guess. So it definitely moved me, but I think there were parts of the way that it was written and how the story progressed that I did find it a little slow. So it wasn't a book that I was able to read in like 24 hours or just a couple of days. It definitely took me like a whole week to read this book. And it's only like 400, like just less than 400 pages. Not like a huge book, but it's pretty dense. And also there is a book within the book. So you have this book that the main female character, you kind of find out like she's been writing this book. And then within this book, she's reading a book that was written for her to read to find out about things in the past. So obviously as a reader, you're reading that too. And it does become, like, it does make sense as to why you're reading this book. Initially, when we started reading the book within the book, I was like, well, where is this going? But then you kind of understand who these people are, where is it going? And generally, I really like the concept of this, having doors that lead to parallel universes, parallel worlds. completely different types of world, fantasy worlds, non-fantasy, just all types of different places that, you know, obviously Earth we don't have. And there's the secret society that is wanting to stop these doors from appearing. So they're trying to close all the doors. And in a way, she's all connected to it because her parents are and her dad is, and just the way that she's grown up. So like it's all like quite intertwined. And I like this book. I'm like giving it 4 stars, but it's just not, it wasn't quite a 5-star like the other Alex E. Harrow book that I read was. I just feel like, and I might be wrong on this, I think this is her debut. Yeah, this is her debut. So maybe because Starling House is just the one I gave 5-star, obviously wasn't. It was like her most recent one. Maybe she just fine-tuned a little bit of her storytelling and her writing a little bit more, so it's a little bit easier to read or fast-paced or whatever. It just seemed a little bit slow and more dense, but I didn't not enjoy it. It just, you know, it wasn't a 5-star, which is fine. It was one of my predicted 5 stars though, so oh well, it's a shame you can't win them all, but I did just finish this. In terms of like other things that have been happening this week, so I did end up going to, I don't know if I mentioned it in the other, but I think I did mention in the other video, but there's a bookstore in a town very close to me that, because I don't live in the UK or like an English speaking country, right? So it's hard for me to find secondhand books here where I live in Portugal that, you know, would be easy for me to grab. And I found out about this place on like a Facebook group that I'm in where it's basically a book exchange. And the best way that I can describe it after being there, because I did go there and I was going to film the actual place inside, but there was a woman inside and everyone who works there in quotation marks is a volunteer. So they actually, you know, they don't get paid or anything. There's no way they could be paid because you basically, it's like a free library book exchange. So like, you know, in the US, and I think maybe in the UK, they might have them when you have the free libraries in the neighborhood and you literally just go in, if you have books to put in there, you put them in and then you can take any books out that you want. So that's basically what it is. Obviously, you can donate if you want. I donated 16 of my books that I was unhauling, and I did end up grabbing 6 books of theirs, and it's all free. And if I don't like any of those, I can just give them back, you know, or I could keep them. Like she's like, literally you can take any books. And also you don't have to provide books. That's how they kind of keep it going, because obviously if people just went there and never brought books, they would run out of books. So it is more of a book exchange, but you don't have to have a book to exchange. And it was really fun to go and see it firsthand. And I'm definitely going to go back in probably a couple months or a month's time just to see what's new. And I wasn't able to see all the shelves because they actually had a lot more shelves than they had like thousands of books. And I just wasn't expecting it to be so massive inside this cute little bookstore. So let me just talk through the books that I grabbed. A lot of these I've never heard of, but I was just like, that looks intriguing. There's a couple here, 3 that I have heard of that I thought, you know, why not? Let's try them. It's free. Why not? What have I got to lose? So anyway, in no particular order, the first one I have is The Honey Guide. This is by Richard Crompton. So this is based in Africa, specifically, I think in Nairobi. And it's about like a death and a detective. It is a fact of life in Africa's sprawling megacity. Life is cheap. Power and wealth are in the hands of a small elite. Riven by ethnic tension, Nairobi is a tinderbox, and the looming presidential elections have set sparks flying. When a brutalized body of a Maasai woman turns up in the park, the overworked police write her off as another dead prostitute. But Mole, a Maasai warrior turned cop, senses there is more to the case. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. I've been to Africa a couple times. Actually, no, I've been 4 times. I've been twice to Kenya, once to Morocco, and once to Tunisia. So I just thought it was interesting. I've never read a book that is set in Africa either. So I picked this up. Why not? I don't know if I'm going to like it. It's going to be my jam, but I got it anyway. And then this is one that actually was on my list in Goodreads of books that I would like to read. So this is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. Now, this copy is absolutely massive. I did notice when I came home, though, that and I'm not mad about it because I didn't pay for this crap, but the copy itself is like come undone. So when I read it, I'm gonna have to like be careful with it. So definitely has become like unglued from itself, which I might be able to like fix that. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not going to stop me from being able to read the book. And the fact that I didn't have to pay anything for this book, apparently it was $19.60 in terms of like the price of it. Yeah, and these are all English, you know, obviously, it's because I don't read Portuguese. So I just thought this is a book that I already wanted to read, I knew about. But for some reason, I just never bought it. I never liked the cover. I really hated this cover. I was like, I don't like the cover. But I have it now, and I've heard some good things about it. So, you know, I got it. It's absolutely enormous though. Like compared to like a normal size paperback, it's huge. It's really, really big. So anyway, there's that one. Then I've never read anything from Richard Osman. I know he is very, very popular. I just don't think I am a mystery person, but I saw this. I don't know if this is his best one. I think this is the second book. Now, tell me if you're watching this, if I have to read them in order, because I think there's like 4 or 5 of them at this point. From my understanding, they're all different stories, but maybe the detective is the same or just some characters are the same. But from my understanding, they're all different and you don't have to read all the books. But if you do, then obviously I can't really read this book 'cause it's not the first one. But again, it's more like a mystery, and I'm not sure if I'm all into mysteries, but Richard Osman is such a well-loved author that I have seen people just rave and rave and rave about. So I thought, well, you know what, let me try it, see if I like the writing. If I like the writing, then obviously I can look at the other books. Then this one I've never heard of. This is Map of the Dead by Murray Bailey, a 3,000-year-old secret they want to stay buried. And this one sounded interesting too. It's like a thriller. It says, the new kingdom of ancient Egypt was a time of great turmoil and intrigue. Pharaohs were erased from history, beliefs were questioned, and secret messages told the truth about this dark period in time. Within days of solving a 3,000-year-old puzzle, a researcher dies in suspicious circumstances. Her friend and colleague, Alex McClure, is determined to find the truth, a story of blood and betrayal, honor and lies. With only a few clues and a mysterious object, Alex must crack the code and expose a shocking and inconceivable truth. It is a deception that the Brotherhood are avowed to keep secret. It is quite a big book, just from what I can see. Oh, it's like 400 pages. It's pretty. It feels pretty thick though. But yeah, never heard of this, never seen anyone talk about this, but it sounded interesting. Egypt, archaeology. I don't know, I read What the River Knows, and that was all in Egypt. That was like archaeology, and I don't know, kind of intrigued me. I didn't mind that, like ancient Egypt. I'm always interested in that. So anyway, and then I did pick up Dean Koon's Odd Thomas. I've actually never read this. This is like one of his most famous book like series, because obviously the Odd Thomas series, he's got multiple of these. From my understanding, I think this is the first one. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but I think this is the actual first book of the Odd Thomas sort of series that he's written. I don't know how many books are actually in it. So I have read Dean Koon's. I just haven't read this one. So I thought, let's try to see if I like these, because obviously these are the ones that people think of, I think initially first, and then I think there's Velocity as well, which I think is a really popular book of his. I think that's what it's called, which is like really fast paced. And I don't know, I just don't know if he is my type of author, but because I've read from him before, it's just for me to figure it out. And I would never go out and actually buy this like from Amazon or even in a bookstore if I saw it, but because it was free, I was like, fine, you know what? Let's grab it. Let's try to read it at some point. If I don't ever get to it or I don't like it, I can give it back. I'm so excited about being able to give my books to them as well, because, you know, I have no interest in trying to make money off of the books that I buy. I spend a lot of money on the books that I've been buying, and I really need to cut down on that because, you know, for one thing, I've been doing it because I've been really like interested in reading a lot of these books. And also I don't know which books I'm going to like and which books I don't, because I don't have a really good idea of what I do like reading. And the more books that I enjoy, the more I can fine tune what I end up buying and bringing into my house. But the fact that I can actually go to this local store, I'm going to call it a store, but it's not even like, you know, I don't have to buy anything, and I can give them the books that I have read, I don't need, that somebody else can enjoy, and I can grab books potentially that actually I've been really wanting to read and I just haven't bought, or I've never heard of, and they might be like amazing. I'm really, really excited. Like it was the best day. I went last Saturday. It's Sunday today. It's been like really raining this weekend. I went last Saturday and I was in there for like an hour and I still didn't end up looking at all the books. There was a lot of older books that like old fantasy books too, that I would probably never want to read. But then there was like these hidden ones where I've heard of them, they're a little bit more modern, or, you know, I want to read them, or I find them a little bit interesting. So I was so happy. It just made me so happy because, you know, I was thinking, well, how am I going to get books? You know, it's not like a library. Like apparently the local library does have an English section. So I think that might be the next thing that I go and try to do eventually. But this one, it just seems to work fine. Anyway, the last book that I picked up from there is Girl A, which I've never heard of. This is by Abigail Dean. And don't know, but like a lot of these seem to be very, like, all these seem to be thrillers. Let me just show you like the side, like, so where are they getting these enormous books from? I don't know where you get these these are huge paperbacks. I've never seen such a huge paperback. Anyway, so let's just read. So this one is about Lexi Gracie. She doesn't want to think about her family. She doesn't want to think about growing up in her parents' house of horrors. And she doesn't want to think about her identity as Girl A, the girl who escaped. When her mother dies in prison and leaves Lex and her siblings the family home, she can't run from her past any longer. Together with her sister, Evie, Lex intends to turn the house of horrors into a force for good. But first she must come to terms with her 6 siblings and with the childhood they shared. So it's going to be a little bit dark, but maybe it might be a little bit slow. It might be a little bit sad. I don't really know. I have no idea. I've never heard of it. I think all of these have pretty decent ratings. Some of them might be like a 3 point something, but I noticed some other ones like have 4-star ratings on Goodreads. So I was like, okay, they're not like complete trash. People have read them. So I'm excited. I have no idea what I picked up, but you know what? It's kind of fun. It was really fun just going there and not knowing what to expect and not knowing if I was going to come home with any books, and the fact that I did come home with books that I was interested in reading and never heard of some of them. That was fun. So last update from me for this week is I did start reading last night right after I finished The 1,000 Doors. I did start reading this one, Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. This is what the book looks like. I actually really don't care for what this looks like here. This is from a Fairy Loot, and I think for Fairy Loot, I'm just not a fan of this. I think it's the red. I'm not sure if I like this burgundy red with the gold. Just seems a little, nah, not for me. But the inside is, oh my god, I keep hitting myself with books. The inside is very, very gorgeous. So I didn't get very far last night because I just didn't really feel like it. I'm on page 38, so really not far at all. And it's only like it's like a 400 page book. What I've gathered so far is, and I really like the actual story from the author because there was a note in here for the Fairy Loot readers, and basically she has gone through cancer, and I'm assuming like beaten it for now, or like in remission or whatever, and that prompted her to write this book. So it's about this girl who is very, very ill. I think she also has cancer, and she ends up falling into this fantasy world, this book series that she reads with her sister, and she wakes up and she finds she is the she is the evil stepsister of, I guess, the hero or the heroine in the story, because that's the character that she was most, connected with, I guess, and it's kind of an interesting concept. So basically what she has to do is she has to survive in the story, I think for a whole year, and wait for this flower to bloom. And if she's able to do that, then she will wake up back in her real world. And if she's not, then she's basically dead. I mean, that's like what I've gathered in the first 38 pages. So she has ended up in this little fantasy world. She's trying already to conspire with these 2 other minions, as she's calling them, because literally the next day she's supposed to be executed. So she has little time because she knows what happens in the story. I like it so far, but I am finding I found it really difficult to follow last night because the world building is all entwined with knowing the book, and because our main female character knows the book, she's telling you what happens in the book, and it's very fast. Like I'm trying to follow along, and I'm trying to understand who is everybody within the story. So it really jumps in there pretty fast, but then also it's info dumping quite a bit. Not in a, I wouldn't say in a negative way, I'm just not following everything. So I don't know, that's me. Maybe I was just tired last night, but I wasn't completely following what was going on at first when she ended up in the fantasy world, because there would be like one line of dialogue, and then the writer, who is the writer? The writer is Sarah Reese Brennan. She would just go into a little bit of a tangent about what happened in the story, but it's really like from the perspective of our main character. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but I found it a little confusing to follow, to be fair. Just from somebody who doesn't know the story. I can imagine as a writer, she was writing this and it was like obvious to her what she was writing, because she knows the story of her story within the story, and she knows what she's writing about. But I'm, as a reader, trying to follow along, and I need a little bit of time to digest what you're telling me. Like a little bit of the world building is just like thrown in your face, and then literally like the next paragraph you're learning about something else, and you're still trying to grasp what you just learned before. So maybe it was just me and last night. I don't know. I'm hoping that it gets a little bit better in terms of me enjoying it and following along, because I felt like I wasn't following along last night. I was just like reading and I was just like, okay. But having said that, it kind of gives me the same vibe as this one. So How to Become the Dark Lord and or Die Trying, because she's trying to be as evil as possible. And she's like, you know what, to hell with it. You know, that's what I'm going to do. This is not real. You know, she doesn't believe it's real. And why should she? She's literally in a book that she's read with her sister. It's a really like a famous fantasy series, and she's in the first novel. And I think there is a second book. I would imagine there would be a second book, like they would make this a series, because it's a really cool, interesting concept. So anyway, it's kind of similar to this one in the fact that, yeah, she's taking joy in trying to be evil, but she hasn't, obviously I've only read 38 pages, so she hasn't actually been evil yet. She's just talking to two people, trying to get them on her side. And at the same time, we actually got the perspective, she has her maid, she's like her dress maid or something that helps her get dressed and everything. She's like part of the royalty, and a handsome guard, which I don't know if he is going to be the love interest or not, because it's very meta, because there was even a moment in the story where it's like, you know, he's very handsome to be a side character. Does that mean anything? Maybe he is important to my story. So it's a little bit meta. If you like things like that, then you might enjoy it. I just think for me, it was a little bit jarring, but yeah, it's fine. It's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be darker, but it's a little bit, it's way more comical than I expected it to be. So we watched, what did we watch? We watched Salem's Lot last night, and that's all about like vampires and stuff. And I was thinking, ooh, I want to start reading a spooky book. So I picked this one up thinking it was going to be a little bit darker and more like horror vibes, but it's not. So I don't know if it's really something that I am feeling like reading right now, but I've started it, so we'll see. It was that one or this one. I mean, I do have my pile of books behind me, but I wanted to read one of these two this next week. And I felt like this was going to give me too much like cozy vibes. But now I feel like this one might be a little too cozy for me. I don't know how dark it's going to be. Maybe it'll get really dark. I don't know. I don't know if I want a dark book, but I wanted something a little bit spookier. And I just think I'm reading a lot of books that are a little bit more comical. And I don't know if that's something that I can appreciate that, but I don't know if it's something I really felt like last night. So we will see. But yeah, that's my little update, my like reading update for the week. So hopefully I can read actually these two books. If I don't feel like going into this, I have a load of other books that I've already gone through with you that I want to go to. So I guess we'll just decide as we decide. Hopefully this is not going to be a DNF. I'll see how much I can get through today. I didn't really get into it last night, if I'm being completely honest, but 38 pages is not enough for me to DNF. I need to get to at least like 100 pages and then I'm like, okay, this is probably not for me. You need to push through because I feel like sometimes it takes a long time to get to the actual story. So anyway, we'll see. If I get to 100 pages and still have no idea what the hell is going on, then that would be a different problem. Thank you so much if you made it this far in the video. Thank you, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!